Welcome, everyone out there in the lovely internet world to another edition of Half-Ashed. My name is Craig Schneider. I'm your lovely co-host this evening with my good friend Kip Fisher, down there in what finally looks to be very comfortable, very warm Florida winter.
Yes, the actual Florida winter has returned. We were still about 32, 33 degrees this morning, but got up about 75 by afternoon. So right now it feels great out here.
Not too shabby. We hit 35 today. So I thought that was beautiful because it was sunny. I could drive with my window cracked, and it was lovely. So
I think that's beautiful because it wasn't here.
Well, it's good to talk to you, man. I know we've talked a lot this week, and it's been nice to communicate with you when it hasn't had to have been so rushed and hectic. Although we did kind of focus most everything on the show and what we're going to do to move forward, but it's always good to have something you're so passionate about and that you enjoy so much that doesn't seem like work, even if we are talking about it.
Absolutely, and to be honest, I'm just thankful I don't have to have my wind block here beside me tonight.
To bring back in the Florida winter discussion. Well, I'm excited about a lot when it comes to this show, so I guess I'm a little biased. It seems, but tonight I am excited for our cigar of the week. It's a live show. It's my first live show being able to feature a cigar that I'm passionate about and that I love so much, and so tonight's companion cigar is going to be the Ramon Allones Eminencia from 2005. This bad boy is probably my favorite box of cigars that I have. You did smoke one of the versions earlier in the week, right?
Yes, I did. I actually smoked it on a clean palate, unlike tonight. But
oh, good.
Cigar today, and I sent you the picture of it. You could see I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to tonight. I need to still cut and light my cigar, but I have a bit of a predicament that I didn't mention to you earlier. But my torch is in my car. My soft flame is pretty much out of fluid, and so I'm left with butane and cedar and a flint. And so I'm going to play with a little bit of fire here to get my Eminencia lit. So I'll tell you what, I don't have the video up. Have you lit yourself up yet?
I have not. I'm about to. I just clipped it, and that was that noise you heard interrupting you while you were talking.
Oh, it's no problem for me. I didn't even notice.
The first year we went to CFC down in the Dominican, we, of course, flew down and didn't know all the tips and tricks that we are now carrying out to get torches in and out of the country. So we showed up with our handy-dandy Vicks, and we're hanging out at the chateau, and Carlito didn't have a lighter, and he asked for a lighter, and I had to give him my 69-cent Vic to light his Opus with, and felt kind of weird about it.
Well, you didn't have to give him anything, I suppose.
Yeah. The man had to light his cigar.
All right, let's see if I can burn my eyebrows off. You ready for this?
I would pay good money to see that.
Oh, it went out too soon. That's a shame. I'm gonna have to put it on my on the cedar and just go that direction.
But Dave Zach is raising his hand right now.
Sorry, folks. I apologize for this slightly less than beautiful method of lighting this beautiful cigar. But if you give me a moment, I'll take a few puffs here.
While you're doing that, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but this one did the same thing as the first one. I was amazed at how quickly, easily, and evenly this thing took fire. I mean, just right across the surface, the whole thing just went aglow. I mean, it's just a really fine ash.
Not half-ashed, full-ashed?
Exactly. Despite my half-ashed ways, it still produced a full ash.
Your half-ashed ways. I tried to put liquid butane on my dining room table in my smoking room and light it. That's pretty half-ashed, actually, I have to say. All right, well, I'm going on this bad boy. Looking forward to to the smoking experience and getting into a little bit. But I'll talk a little bit about this cigar. A lot of you probably aren't intimately familiar with this stick. It's one that I've been lucky enough to have in my humidor for seven years or so. I am absolutely a fan of the Ramoniones blend. I think it probably is the perfect all around cigar blend in my opinion. It has got the hard tobacco based or typical flavors that you might expect. Things like tobacco and spice and earth and a little bit of leather. And then it also has a lot of sweeter, softer flavors like a floral note, very nutty, sweet, spicy, citrus. There's a lot of balance that goes along with this cigar, and it really is unique in how it all comes across. So I've certainly classified myself as a Ramoniones whore for quite some time. You've got your Arturo Fuente, I've got RA, and this cigar is a good addition to my collection. So
I feel pretty privileged smoking the cigar you would call the perfect cigar blend.
I don't regret that. That's a pretty accurate statement for me. So this Vitola, the Eminencia, it's been produced once. Well, this size for Ramoniones, it's a 5 5/8 by 44, so just slightly skinnier than a traditional Corona Gorda. There's a little bit of history to this cigar, or I guess reason for it being the regional edition release. So in 2004, Habanos S.A., essentially the distribution head or marketing head of the Cuban cigar market, started a trend that they continue on today, and that is releasing certain cigars to regional markets around the world. The initial releases are now actually infamous in the cigar world. The Vega Robena Jubileum, and I just can't help myself. I have to take a puff in mid-sentence. And the re-release, the first re-release of the Boulevard Gold Medal, those were released to the market in 2004 and were just absolutely epic cigars. Truly great representations of their mark, the blend of their mark. And this Ramoniones was a regional release the next year in 2005. Specifically for the Swiss market. So the Swiss distributor commissioned these as a unique size to the Ramoniones blend. There's typically only thick and thin cigars. There's not kind of this middle ground for Ramoniones. They had, at this time, they had the Petite Corona and Corona, and even some smaller Chico-sized, maybe Laguito number 3 size cigars that they offered in a 42 or smaller ring gauge. Then they had the larger ones, the 49 and the 50, which were the double Corona or the Robusto. So this Corona Gorda was a welcome addition, kind of smack dab in the center of the sizes. So it's nostalgic in its packaging in that it's the first Ramoniones in decades to actually come out in a slide lid box, a cabinet. And it has a second band on it that you can see if you happen to be watching the video. It says Edición Regional. And it really, in my opinion, upholds the tradition of what the Jube and the gold medal started, in that these regional editions were truly special releases of the brand that they were, or the blend that they were representing. So that's kind of your encyclopedic history for this cigar, and it brings us to where we are today. I picked these up in 2005 or 2006, and from the 2 boxes I originally had, I've got less than half of one left. So I love them.
I may have missed something there. I got a little interested in the chat room for just a second, but now this size. Now, if I understand right, they put out these regional specials annually. Is it regular production? Do they do this size always, or just a different size every year? Or how are these put out?
No, it's that's actually a unique question. the regional distributors, either country or in some cases it's continent or whatever it may be, those distribution companies or distribution organizations will actually commission whatever they want. So there's been some famous cigars from years past that have been re-released as a regional edition because some distributor said, I'd really love to. There was a Bolivar Lancero, roughly a Lancero, that was re-released 4 or 5 years ago, which was thought of as such a truly epic cigar that was incredibly rare in the 60s and 70s. There's also been kind of more normal cigars. Hey, there wasn't a Bellicoso or Torpedo in the Ramon Iones brand, so in 2005 the British distributor commissioned a Bellicoso. So there's been some nostalgia to it. Hey, let's bring this old cigar back. And then there's also been this, hey, we've never had that size. Let's go make this size in this cigar. It really is whatever you're willing to pay for and agree to terms of purchasing. So,
well, this size is right up my alley. I mean, I'm a Corona Robusto kind of guy. I don't dig these 60 ring gauge things that are kind of all the rage these days. I don't have a beat with them. That's just not my groove.
Yeah.
Well, I slipped back into the 60s there for a minute, didn't I?
Well, I would agree with you. This is probably on the larger end of the cigar I prefer. I'm not a big Robusto guy personally. I smoke a lot of Petite Coronas. We were just mentioning before we went live on the broadcast that, a Petite Corona, if smoked kind of at the tempo this cigar would, I guess, naturally want to be smoked at, should last you an hour and a half or so. I mean, you can definitely get a lot of an experience out of a PC or a plain Corona. So, something like this, I wouldn't doubt if this cigar can last us the whole show.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. And I think back on something Dale Roush said a couple years ago, that a cigar will tell you when it's finished.
Yeah.
And I think they tend to tell you they're finished a lot earlier if you puff on them too quickly, too hard, or too big. They tend to get harsh for me anyway.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with that. I think that's actually one of the reasons why I like smaller cigars. It's more comfortable in my mouth, so I feel like it's much more of a natural puff. A larger cigar, I have to think about puffing it because I don't just hold it in my mouth. I don't just want it there, or I don't just naturally leave it in my mouth and can talk around it. A smaller cigar, it's much more comfortable. It doesn't become, it doesn't impede what I'm doing, maybe is the way to put it.
Yeah.
But, I love these bad boys. There's a lot to them, a lot of complexity, a decent amount of strength, a nice body. It's terrific on the finish. It doesn't kill my palate. And as I said, I'm just a sucker for the blend as a whole. I really like how it comes across. So I'll be looking forward to the rest of the show so we can kind of follow this progression here.
Yeah. You can put me away from this long enough to talk about anything else.
Well, what are your thoughts on this bad boy? I've yapped on long enough in the beginning.
I like it. That's all I got to say. I like it.
Oh, great. This will be a perfect 35-minute show tonight.
No. I made a few notes earlier in the week when I smoked the other one. Just from an outward appearance, the construction was just perfect. The first one was a little tighter draw than I normally would just fall in love with. This one's just spot on, though, tonight. No tight spots, no voids or soft spots or anything like that. Before I lit it, had a very faint, weak wrapper aroma. A little bit more at the foot, kind of almost cedary, a little sweet. But the thing I really picked up on the first one, and this one may have been a little tainted by the fact that I had a cigar in my mouth lit 30 seconds before this one, but the initial pulls on both of them were not sour in a bad sense, kind of a tart kind of sourness, a sweet and sour kind of interplay there that was neat. I'm looking at my notes right now. Even I said on the first one about how amazed I was at how well it lit, how easily it lit. Um, I don't know what else I got to say. A little bit of white pepper early on, rather than a black pepper or a hot pepper. I don't know if you're familiar with white pepper. If you're not, go to your grocery store and get some. Because you'll find that quite a bit in a cigar anyway. Or I do. Um, Kind of that sweet and sour thing is, my experience with Cuban cigars is extremely limited. I have never had very many at all, but the sweet and sour flavor that I get early on is what I think of when I think of Cubanesque flavors in a cigar.
I would. That's a. I've said it before on the show, and this is only our 5th episode, so it's making me slightly embarrassed that maybe I'm going to become a broken record. But I love reviewing a cigar in tandem with someone else because of exactly what you just said. Sweet and sour is it is the overwhelming flavor in this cigar. If you kind of take what the experience is, what all of the smoke reminds you of, rather than kind of picking it apart to get different flavors or different aspects of it. If you take one puff, that's what it tastes like. It tastes like dipping your finger in good quality sweet and sour sauce that maybe you've even made on your own or something. It has that kind of overwhelming full palate stimulation where it's sweet, it's sour, it's savory, it's slightly spiced. It's really unique. You're right, and I never would have gotten that until you said it.
Well, I saw a video with Jose Blanco not too long ago, and it was a clip from one of his seminars he does, his tasting seminars, and he was saying, you have very few actual perceptions you get in a flavor. It's a combination of those that will remind you of a very specific flavor, but sweet, sour, bitter, salty, those kind of things are the basic elements of flavor are really what you're getting. It's just the way that a cigar impacts you at any given time that calls to mind some memory of some food or flavor that you've had in the past.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to attend one of those tasting seminars from Jose while he still was with La Aurora. And I really, really enjoyed the whole experience, and he's got some great perspective. I really recommend that, if there are listeners out there who have the chance to go to a store when Jose's there, just go and pick his brain. What a tobacco mind. No doubt about it. I mean, just a really unique guy. That's a great way. That's a great point as to how much he can bring to the experience. He just said something like that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Most of my tasting notes are more what I'm reminded of rather than what I definitively can taste, That's unique. That's a good point.
Yeah. I have not met him in person. I've corresponded a few times online and whatnot, but it is clear how knowledgeable the guy is with tobacco.
Very passionate, at times hot-headed and passionate, which is I love it when people let their guard down in this industry and just be real. And Jose is that guy, definitely. Well, we can sit here and yap on about this specific cigar all night long, or we can kind of have in the interlude some industry news. You want to kind of kick us off here with the first item that we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, if I can jump ship on you and go to a different item.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go right ahead.
Since you mentioned Jose's earlier employer, they have a new cigar coming out. Actually, probably they're going to have a few come out this year, but the one that kind of caught my attention this week was the Guillermo Leon 15-minute break from La Aurora. And a few things jumped out at me with that cigar anyway. One is a small size. It's 3.5 inches by 42.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about how long a cigar will burn, and that we both were amazed that somebody could even smoke even that small a cigar in 15 minutes. I guess you had some ideas about the blend and whatnot, and I'll go ahead and give that before you mention that. But it has an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, not Habano. It's IQ. Um, and the binder, it says Cameroon and Dominican Republic Corojo binder, and I'm going to assume that means there are two binders on this cigar.
Hmm.
And here's the surprising part for me: the filler is listed as Peru, Brazilian, Dominican Republic, and Nicaraguan, and I just was dumbfounded that they get at least four leaves in the filler with a cigar that already has two binders and a wrapper and a 42 ring gauge.
Yeah, I would have to say that just sounded like somebody was sitting in a back room with a crazy grin on their face, going, "What else can we put in here? What else can we put in here?" I don't know if somebody forgot to hit the edit button or what, but I'm looking forward to to trying a cigar with 6 or 7 different types of tobacco in it. That'll be interesting.
Well, I people say this and you hear it, but we witnessed it firsthand at CFC. The little man that rolls the Opus Lanceros. There are 7 leaves in that little Lancero, and that's kind of hard to believe, but we watched the man do it, and it's rolled into bar. He rolls up each one of those little leaves and somehow gets it all packed into a Lancero.
Hmm. Well, he knows what he's doing. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, there is one man that rolls those cigars, and that's it.
There's I don't know if it's just been more recently with the fact that the internet has made nothing sacred any longer, but there's a lot of cigars that you look into it, limited releases, you can find information like that out. The original Cohiba Bahiques, they were rolled by one woman, Norma Fernandez. There was another Cohiba release that was also rolled by one person alone, and then the gentleman who rolls the Opus Lanceros, as you had said, it's unique to me that something with national or international appeal can all be traced back to that one person creating that finished product. It's really unique. I know there's hundreds of hands that touch tobacco leaves before they are smoked by the end user, but it's kind of cool that it all kind of funnels back to him and then back out to everyone else.
Yeah. Typically in a premium cigar, you're going to have, from the time it's a seed to the time it's set on fire, there's over 200 sets of hands going to touch that in some way.
That's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing that we can smoke a cigar for $4.
Yeah, well, translate that, if we were using an American workforce to do that, and we're going to be paying $300 a stick.
Yeah, really, it'd be a whole other game. Well, I think the other item that you were alluding to with my thoughts on this Guillermo Leone are with literally 7 different types of tobacco in this cigar, and the fact that it really is shooting for that quick experience. 3.5 inches long. It's named the 15-minute break. 7 different types of tobacco. A double binder, at least it seems. It kind of makes me think, I wonder if this cigar really doesn't have Ligero in it, or it has very limited quantities of Ligero in it. I wonder if that double binder has something to do with helping to keep ignition going. If there isn't that Ligero that's got that oil in it, that'll kind of smolder and allow you to take a minute, 2 minutes off in between puffs. It's a unique thing that I wish I had enough practical working knowledge of how a cigar functions to know, yeah, that's what they're doing. They've got a lot more room for tobacco because they have much thinner tobacco in there. I don't know.
I know Barry Stein down there at Miami Cigar. I could pick his brain a little bit about this one, see what's going on.
Yeah, it's Barry's a good guy to talk to. I think that would be a smart move to reach out to him. I'd be interested to see what he says.
Yeah,
he'll probably say, I'm just Barry. I just talk about the cigars. I'm not the guy who rolls them or comes up with them. But I could hear him saying some smart aleck comment like that. But either way, I think it'd be fun to listen to him.
Yeah, I don't know what he would be willing to share, but I know he would know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He is definitely a cigar guy at heart. He's not a salesman that happens to work for a cigar company. He's a cigar guy.
No, you're absolutely right about that. No doubt about it. Barry's a good guy. Or what did Dale call him?
I don't remember.
Frank or I don't
Yeah,
know, Brian?
I think it was Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah, that's right. Oh well. Yeah, Brian Stein. Mm-mm.
Uh, what else we got on there this week?
Oh, not it seems like a bad time to have started a podcast. There's not a lot of stunning news that's coming out in the last month or so, but we got a few items here. Anything that jumps out you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's going to be quiet leading up, until I don't know May or June. It's going to really heat up with the news, and a lot of folks making announcements leading up to IPCPR.
Yeah.
We did have the formal announcement of this year's Avo limited edition coming out. It's always released somewhere around his birthday, which is in March. And he'll have a series of birthday parties. He'll have one here in Florida, in Orlando at Corona. He does that every year. And I don't smoke just a ton of Avos. I do like some of them. The 2009 limited edition he put out, the Compañero, was a fantastic cigar. But you don't exactly see those still on the shelves anymore. And they're a little pricey. They usually retail in the $15 or $17 range. But always, always, always a very good cigar. And I make it a point to get one or two of them every year at least, just to try them.
Yeah. Yeah.
This year they're calling it the dominant 13th. So I guess it refers to it. Many of his tie in some way to his music. Most of you know Avo's a jazz musician, and it's also 2013. That's the what's his? I'm trying to read the press release here. Pays tribute to his musical roots. It's symbolic of the year, and it is the dominant 13th chord, whatever that is. I'm not a musician, so I can't tell you.
I thought it was his 13th limited release, actually, but
It is.
oh, okay. Well, never mind.
Yeah, and it's going to have some fancy packaging and whatnot. Kind of like not the piano case that we saw in that anniversary last year, but a case with some musical tie-ins to it. And it looks like, yeah, that's about it. I guess we didn't tell you the makeup of the cigar. Habano, once again, not Habano. You know how much crap I take over that? Because I do it all the time.
That's awesome. I'm glad you take a lot of crap for it.
Habano 2000 Ecuador wrapper, a Dominican binder, and this is, I have not seen this term before, and maybe you can shed some light on it. The binder is called a Yamasa.
No, I know nothing about that.
I don't either, and I have not yet been able to research it and kind of dig up any more information on what that actually is. And the fillers, Dominican and Peruvian. The Dominican, here's a description for the Dominican tobacco and the filler. Piloto Habano Seed Viso, San Vicente Ligero, Corojo Olor Ligero.
That sounded closer to the next pope than it did Spanish tobacco descriptions.
Yeah, that is the longest filler tobacco name I've ever seen.
I think I heard a Vincente in there.
Uh-huh.
Ah, that's all right.
Yeah.
Well,
6x52 Toro, $15 MSRP.
I'm making light of the situation here, but in all actuality, I probably can attribute my fondness for unique cigars or special releases back to an Avo. In 2000, when I was really starting to really go head over heels gaga over cigars. I think that was the year, either 2000 or 2001 was the year that the Avo 75th came out. And I can remember thinking that cigar was just about the best cigar I had ever even been around. Man, oh man, I loved that stick. I had probably a box and a half of those, and then I was on a waiting list to buy the Avo signatures just because I thought that maybe they might have been that Avo 75th blend because they looked like identical packaging and colors of the band, and you know, I did the Avo thing for a while, and there's been some really great LEs that they've come out with, and good cigars all in all. The Avo Maduro back in the day, I loved. It was my favorite Maduro. It's a good company, but you really don't hear a lot about them. You really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, like I said, I don't smoke just a whole ton of them. Christy, my wife, who very rarely smokes a cigar, maybe once or twice a year, she really likes the Avo XOs quite a bit. Those and the Fuente Between the Lines are basically the only two cigars she'll ever pick up.
Boy, it's a shame that you have to keep the between the lines in your humidor just in case she wants one.
Yeah.
Darn, I always have to have some for you, dear.
Yeah, there's always a few of those around.
Mm-hmm.
You know how much crap I'm taking in the chat room right now?
Oh, I hope it's for Habanio, because you did it again in that filler. When reciting that filler.
No.
Yeah, you did.
Whatever.
That's all right. We'll leave it up to our listeners. Give them another reason to write us an email.
Yeah, these live shows, I'm going to be all kind of twisted up trying to watch this chat room.
See, I've got... I was telling Kit before we broadcast, folks, I've got an HP laptop that I'm broadcasting the show from over here on my end. And for some reason, I've got a weird driver issue where anytime I'm using Chrome, my screen will lock and I don't have... I can't see what it is that's happening on the screen. The image just stays. So I can't have more than the absolute necessity open at once. So I can't have the chat room open and still operate the show. So I'll have to hear that you guys are just giving Kip such a hard time because of him. So it's going to have to be epic enough that he mentions something on the air. So please keep the gentle ribbing coming and maybe escalate it a couple notches.
Here is an actual piece of totally useful information just came out of the chat room thanks to Cigar Coop. That's William Cooper, who we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. He does a fantastic blog, Cigar Coop. If you guys haven't read him, you need to. He's just one of the good guys, has a strong set of ethics in what he does, and I really appreciate his work. But
because before you get into that, I'll just say I'm glad Coop's one of the good guys and does it the right way, because then he can take when I say that I still don't agree with his article about the IPCPR, the Consumer Day. So maybe we can debate that one day. We'll get Will on here and talk a little bit more about that. But all right, continue. Previous.
I have actually talked to him, and I mentioned that we would like to bring him on, and I think we can make that happen.
Good.
Anyway, he put in the chat room that Yamasa is a proprietary leaf for Davidoff, something they have come up with.
Oh, interesting.
Davidoff makes Avo cigars.
That is the case, yeah. I should have thought that could be attributed to that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I know they do a lot of that sort of thing.
Yeah. What else we got on here?
Oh, we got a lot on here. Let's see. We can get on to that first item. I know Ron Barker, a good friend of ours from back in the Dog Watch days, and certainly affiliated with Panacea Cigars, is got a pretty neat event coming up in May here that you've got listed. I think, I'm interested in this just personally. I think it sounds cool. I think our listeners would be as well. The Tour de Panacea is May 25th through the 27th. Actually, why don't you run with this one? For some reason, I lit the cedar just when I was starting to talk about this, and I need to touch up my cigar again. So why don't you finish on the Tour de Panacea, and I'm going to finish lighting.
All right, I'm going to let you figure out how to smoke a cigar, and I'll check out this. I don't know if any of the listening folks are in the Pennsylvania or Virginia area and happen to be motorcycle folks. But they're doing what is kind of a cool idea. It's a 3-day bike ride through or from Pennsylvania down into Virginia, where they do a wine and cigar trail where they ride from winery to winery and cigar location to cigar location, just enjoying both as well as riding. I'm not a bike rider and not in the Virginia area, but I gotta say that sounds like kind of a fun trip.
I've got a a gentleman that I know who has been in cigar manufacturing for quite some time, and he makes a really small figurado. It's 3¼ inches, and he makes it. And the reason why it's 3¼ inches is he had a really great customer of his who was a bike rider, but he wore a full face helmet with a visor on it. And 3¼ inches was the largest cigar that he could smoke in his helmet while he was riding his bike. So, yeah. So he was so dedicated he would still smoke cigars while he was on his motorcycle.
Man, I don't know. Either you have your cigar out in the wind just going all to pieces and burning like a stack and getting harsh and bitter, or it's totally enclosed in your helmet. And no fresh air whatsoever. I'm not sure there's a happy medium there, but more power to him.
Well, he swore that it worked well. So, I'd always ask him. I mean, could you ride like 45 seconds at a time because you had to hold your breath practically, or how could you do that? And he swore that it worked well. So, kind of a goofy thing.
Kind of like me.
But anyway, sorry, me and my rat holes.
Anyway, if there is anybody up there in that area, the website is cigarvolant.com, VOLANTE. You guys might remember Ron. He came on Dog Watch quite a bit. I think he was one of their sponsors for Panacea, and seems like they're not sure how this was set up. Panacea, I think, also was flatbed cigars. I think that's the I don't know. One is the parent company of the other, but.
Yeah.
We had the Panacea cigars at the HERF last year, and everything we had were well bigger than my normal cigar I would reach for. I think they were all 60 ring cigars, but they tasted great, and just not my cup of tea for size.
We don't take sponsorship on this show at this point, or we have no I was going to call them investors. We have no investors either, but we have no advertisers, excuse me. But the Panacea cigar blend is just one from, a cigar smoker talking to other cigar smokers that I recommend to you for the unique way that it's blended and the unique way that they understand their cigars. So those cigars are classified by the color of the band. So they've got their red, their blue, their black, and each of those colors represents just a different tweak that they've made to their core blend. It might be a different wrapper. It might be a slightly tweaked binder or filler leaf, whatever the specific detail is. It's still centered around that core of a blend that they know works for guys who like strong cigars, who like mild cigars, who like hard flavors, soft flavors. They've got this, I'll call it proprietary, a blend that they're working with that they explore and experiment with how they can tweak that to make the experience just that much more unique. Imagine a cube that you can look at from one side or the other side, and it's still the same cube. It just might have a different appearance however you look at it. That's how they blend their cigars, and it's such a unique way for me, someone who's such a geek when it comes to blending and knowing how a cigar can become the experience that you love. I really appreciate that because you can kind of say, well, I like this about your blend, but I don't like that. And then, boom, all of a sudden you know that you're going to prefer the blacks or the blues or the reds, whatever it may be. It's pretty cool. I like it and suggest you kind of seek it out for that reason because you can learn a lot about yourself in just when you go and try to experience these Panaceas. So it's a pretty cool way of blending. A pretty neat strategy.
Yeah, I had not ever heard that story. That is kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I liked the red, and that's basically all I remember about Panacea cigars. I'm sorry to say.
I think I actually think Ron's got Ron's a talker. Boys and girls, you think I'm a talker? We get Ron on here. Kip and I will just kick back and smoke the cigar. We'll let him run the show. That was supposed to be a joke. Kip didn't laugh, so now I look like an A, but that's all right. What I mean is that he'll go into a lot of different things. And you mentioned that you like the red. It's unique that you just, boom, you remember that it's the red you like. I believe that one of the reasons why he said that they use distinct colors on their bands is because a color is easy for someone to remember. oh, I think it was blue, or I think it was red. You then know, oh yeah, okay, it was this blend. That's what you like. It's not the, you don't have to remember Widowmaker or Peacemaker or the different names that some of the cigars might have. It's a color. Everybody knows colors, and you can generally remember that easier than you can remember a name. Another really simple, unique thing that they do that I think is pretty cool. So
Yeah, well, I guess it's working. It just worked on me.
yeah, exactly. So I didn't mean to make this a Panacea commercial. It's not intended for that. I just, whatever. I'll shut up now.
Yeah. What else we got on here? Oh, the one I'm excited about, and you maybe less so.
I believe you're correct.
The Room 101 Namakubi, and I can say Namakubi. Although I guess I'm making an assumption that that's the way you pronounce it, so I should probably just keep my mouth shut.
You can also say Habano. It just doesn't mean anything.
Now you've made me lose my train of thought. Oh,
sorry.
The original Namakubi. I mentioned this earlier when we were talking a little bit about it, that I tried that 6x60, and like every other 6x60 I've ever tried, just not my thing. I tried the Roxo, which is a really small one, little tiny cigar. Didn't care for it. And then I tried the Tiburon, and just completely fell in love with that cigar. And still to this day, I have a sizable stockpile of those, because every time I have seen them on the shelf since, I made it a point to buy some more, because they were a limited run. Although they're still on the shelves out there, you can still find them. For whatever reason, that size and that cigar just really struck a chord with me, and love it. And I'm really excited. They're putting out an extension to that line, the Namakubi Ecuador, where they're changing up the blend a little bit, adding a couple of sizes, keeping one of the smaller ones, I think. Dang it, Habano wrapper. Once again. And, the binder says authentic Corojo, which I will make an assumption that is Camacho thing. I know they're big on their Corojo being the authentic Corojo. And the filler is just Honduran and Dominican. But I'm really excited for these cigars to come out, just to try them. I hope they're as good as that Tiburon was. And if they are, I will be investing in them heavily again.
Yeah, you mentioned that that authentic Corojo is a Camacho thing. It's funny to me that they use that, because authentic Corojo was used in Cuba for 60 years, from the late 30s to the late 90s. That was what Cuban cigar tobacco was. It was all Corojo, and so it's just interesting to me that Camacho in the late 90s said, we're going to grow Corojo leaf in Honduras, and it is the authentic Corojo. It's just kind of funny, because it's not from Honduras, but that's all right. It's good marketing.
Yeah, it's good leaf, best I can tell.
Yeah, that is true. It's definitely good leaf. Now, I'm not the biggest Namakubi fan. I had my first this past summer, 8-9 months ago, and have since tried a few others, and it's just, it's an okay cigar. I'm just not going to spend money on it.
Have you tried the Tiburon?
I honestly don't know what names of the cigars I've tried, because they don't go by different color bands. No, I don't know what sizes I've had by name. I know I've had the small guy. I'd call it a Très Petit, maybe 4.5 by 42, roughly in that range, I think.
Roxo and Papichulo were those small sizes.
Papichulo sounds familiar. I think I may have gone that direction because the name was intriguing.
The Tiburon is 6 by 44.
Definitely have not had that.
And that is, there's a cigar in that line for anybody, but for me, that cigar really shines. That size, that blend just works for my taste.
That's worth seeking out. I mean, I didn't dislike the cigar. It's just kind of that mentality I had last week when I was talking about that cigar in my ashtray that was 7/8 not smoked and that I set out just because I didn't enjoy it. I just don't get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It doesn't turn me off. It's just one of those things. I'd rather have something that I did get the enjoyment out of. That's all.
Yeah.
But well, I gotta say, not to completely break away from all the news here, but I'm solidly into the second third of this Eminencia here, and I think my humidor is dry. This cigar to me has a little bit of a different characteristic than a lot of the others that I've smoked, and it definitely is kind of coming across as a little bit drier, more grassy in flavor than what I expect. And I think it's about time I recharged my humidity beads. I don't know. I'm not enjoying this experience as much as I had thought I would.
I pulled up my notes again while you were talking, and I made the same note after I got past the halfway mark in the first cigar. That early on, that sour kind of flavor that I noted was as Dale would have said, it was acidic. It was mouth-watering. It caused me to salivate. And in the second half, none of that. It went very dry. It was drying on my palate as I was smoking it.
Yeah, this is definitely dry on my palate. It's interesting. Maybe my humidor isn't dry. I mean, you've had these for long enough. You're no longer dealing with anything, any product of my storage whatsoever. But I mean, I've got probably a 30-ounce tumbler here, and I've got maybe 2 inches left in the bottom. I've probably had at least 24 ounces of water with this cigar. I absolutely am very dry on my hard palate, especially, is like sandpaper. Interesting.
Hey, just a random question. What do you shoot for in your humidor? What's your preferred humidity?
Well, I have 65% beads. I use all humidity beads that I've purchased from a very good friend, Mark Neff at cigarmony.com. I have humidified all of my cigars with the humidity beads since probably 2005 or 6, with epic results. A friend of mine who met Mark told him he was an idiot in getting into the cigar industry with a product that wasn't a consumable. Because you buy the humidity beads once, and if you treat them right, you never have to replace them.
Yep.
But as a consumer, my goodness, I mean, don't you want a product that costs you $20 or something, and you never have to replace it ever, and it always works perfectly?
Yep, I'm with you. I'm a fellow 65%er.
Yeah, I don't even have a hygrometer in my humidor anymore. I got rid of them. Actually, I sold them to work. So I'll use my hygrometers at work in different houses when we're building to test indoor environment levels. But I just go by when I can see that the beads appear to be a little more opaque. I'll add some more water. Or if in this case, this cigar does taste to me like it's a bit dry, but maybe it's just going along with the experience you noted as well. I'll go by one or the other. So I'll probably add some more distilled water into those tonight after we get out of here, and I'll be ship-shape by tomorrow.
Yeah, now, I use 65% beads, although I did not buy mine from Mark. Mine came from a different supplier. It's about the same time frame, though. I've been beads for 6-7 years or so. I do have one electronic humidifier that is also on 65, but got a question in the chat room for you.
Sure, go ahead.
Let me get back up there. Jeff Bauer, who I don't know in person, ask how big your cabinet is and how many beads you got in there. Maybe not how many beads, maybe how much weight.
I have 14,000 beads in my humidor. No, I have got probably a 2x2x4, so about 15 cubic feet is roughly what my cabinet humidor is. And 15, 16, whatever. And I keep about 2 pounds of beads in there randomly spread around. The thing with cigars is they're made of tobacco, and tobacco is much like a sponge. It will absorb water. If it's around water, it will absorb it. And so if you've got, 2,000 cigars that are filled at a proper humidity level, you don't need a lot of excess moisture to keep those cigars where they should be. The cigars will do a good job of that themselves. So I think I should probably have somewhere around 4 or 5 pounds for as large as that is, if I remember the ratio right. But I have great results with the 2 pounds in there.
Mm-hmm. They're hygroscopic.
Yep, hydroscopic is the name, or is the term. You're correct.
Hygroscopic.
Habanero.
Yeah.
Hygroscopic. Okay, thank you.
That's a pet peeve of mine when people say hydrometer, which is an entirely different instrument, too.
Mm.
Anyway.
I'll have to remember that. I see that smirk on your face as you think terrible things about me.
All right. What else we got going on now? What have you been smoking this week?
Well, I've had a pretty interesting week. Not only have I had a new cigar, an old cigar, and then I actually broke into pipe tobacco, but I had great experiences with everything. I'll talk about my first one on here, and then we can kind of escalate up to my goofy experience. I believe that I've admitted before that I am a card-carrying, full-on supporter, fan, probably fanboy is more like it, of Jesus Fuego. The J Fuego cigars have pretty much across the board been the top of my list of cigars to reach for when I'm looking for something that is just going to quench my thirst. And this week I had the newer Edición de Familia from Jesus. I've not had any of these before. I know they've been out for a while. I haven't even purchased any before, which is kind of a shame on me. But this week I smoked the Petit Bellicoso, just my first example. So this is more of a one-off experience than an actual review. But really unique, fun flavors out of this. Tropical fruit, it kind of reminded me of like candied pineapple.
I'm reading your notes, and I got to say, this is cracking me up right now.
Shut up. It definitely reminded me of candied pineapple. Not kinda, but definitely did. Some graham cracker and lime. Really unique for being so soft in flavor and dessert focused. I mean, all those flavors could certainly be considered something you'd find in dessert. The cigar actually reminded me more of Asian food. I don't know why, but it really.
Like, some ginger or something in there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Think of with Asian food.
It definitely all kind of went together. With the lime, I thought of pad thai. Pad thai is so distinctly limey, or can be so distinctly limey that it kind of danced in and out of that constantly. But I don't know. I need to smoke more of these. This was absolutely just the first experience, but it was intriguing enough to where I now am excited to smoke more, not just wanting to because I'm a fanboy. But this is a pretty good cigar. It was a cool shape too, actually. It was a mini Bellicoso, maybe I'll say 5 by 48, 5.5 by 48. I didn't measure it. I'm just guessing. But the tip was actually crooked, like a Fuente chili pepper, an Opus chili pepper. Kind of neat. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I didn't look at the other cigars in the box.
Huh. The chat room wants to know if you got any marzipan in there.
No marzipan, but I found out, and I mentioned this previously on Dog Watch, but I found out that some long-lost relatives of mine were bakers, and I have some Swedish blood in me, and the Swedish side of my family actually made marzipan. So it's kind of a unique thing. I found a couple years ago an actual old school late 19th century marzipan mold, a hand carved wood mold with all the different shapes in there of little candies. Really, really cool.
Oh man, there's got to be a joke there somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there's a dozen or two. Well, that's all right. What about you? I can switch back and forth here a bit.
Sure. I had quite a lengthy list of things I smoked this week, actually, and almost all of them were revisits or reacquaintances for me, things I hadn't picked up in a while that I was just in a mood to go back and to try them again. Um, First on my list there was a cigar. It was one of the last episodes of Dog Watch. They had Ray Benitez on, the A. Benitez cigars. And, I like his regular lines, but he has a special edition little Corona that he does that it is a very rare occasion that I don't have some of those in the humidor. And I grab those pretty regularly and had not for a while. So I picked those up this week, and they're just absolutely as good as I remember. Real woodsy kind of flavors to them. For a Corona, fairly potent, but not overbearing at all. Just fantastic cigars.
Hmm.
And he's one of the small makers. He's based down there out of Miami, maybe just outside of Miami. And his factory, he and his dad have a factory that I believe they recently moved. I think they were in Nicaragua and they just moved across the line into Honduras. But still using Nicaraguan tobacco and making some great cigars that a lot of folks haven't heard of.
If there's people in the chat room who reference the inside joke of marzipan, maybe they'll know if I was on that episode of Dog Watch. The Benitez sound familiar, but I can't remember smoking experience. So if someone else out there knows if I smoked this on the show, let me know.
He was actually the guest on the show one of the nights that Frank Herrera was on there. He was at Frank's shop that night when they were on.
Well, I was definitely on quite a few times when they were Skyping or Google Plusing through Charmed Leaf, so it's very possible.
Yeah. The other thing, I smoked a cigar that I had not had before, that I've had in the humidor since IPCPR last year, that Sean Williams gave me, the El Primer Mundo guy, the owner. And he has a new cigar, La Hermandad. And, man, that was a good cigar. I'm a big fan of most of his cigars. I like the Miami. I like the Epiphania. But this one was a very different cigar than any of the others I've had from his line. I really liked it. I'm not sure right now who makes it, actually, but it was. I stuck a picture up on Instagram this week. The thing burned just as sharply and crisp and straight as any cigar I've ever smoked in my life. It was perfectly constructed. I can't think of a cigar I've ever had that was built any better than that one. Had a really woodsy, earthy kind of flavor to it throughout. Extremely smoky. It reminded me of an Undercrown and just the vast amounts of smoke it put off.
I like a lot of Sean's stuff. I kind of feel bad, but I don't think I have a single one of his cigars in my humidor. But I like him as a guy. He's a cool guy to sit down and have a conversation with. Every one of his cigars that I've had, I have had good experiences with. Although I gotta say that your description of that cigar kind of turns me off a little bit. I'm not real big into that woodsy flavor. I know I'm seeing in some of the cigars I've tried on your recommendation that that's something that you have as a common theme to things that you like. The Frank Herrera biography, the Cuenca 5 anniversary. Those to me are very woodsy as well. So I don't dislike those cigars. I just don't. That's not a common theme in the cigars that I prefer. So I'll reach out. I'll give that a shot because I do like Sean's stuff. So I wonder if maybe he'll be able to present it in a little bit nicer way for me.
Yeah, this like I said, it was a departure from the other cigars I've had of his, and I also like those too, and agree that he is just a great guy. He was actually one of the first manufacturers at IPCPR that like took time and stopped and wanted to have an actual conversation rather than kind of just being so tied up and busy. Super nice guy.
No, go ahead.
No, if you got something else to say, go ahead. I'm jumping ship on you.
I was just gonna briefly say that that's one of my favorite things about IPCPR. You get a lot of people who you can very clearly tell are working. They're there because they gotta sell their cigars. Um, and then you'll certainly find those other people who are at a booth who are really interested in having a great conversation with you about their product. And it it might start with their product, but then all of a sudden it turns into the lifestyle as a whole, and then it goes on to their kids and what they're doing that night. And I love that about IPCPR. Great opportunity to meet some really good people.
Yeah, absolutely. But jumping off, I was listening to what you were saying, and there's a cigar on my list that may be more in line. I don't know if you've ever tried any Luis Sanchez cigars.
I have. I
Have
have.
you had his regular La Tradición Cubana, regular old line, the Corona in that line?
No, I haven't actually. And I had a conversation with Bob McDuffie about a lot of the La Tradición Cubana offerings, or a few of them. I don't think there's a ton. Um, and I still haven't had the main line. I should probably put that on my list.
He makes a very wide range of cigars, and I actually this past summer spent a lot of time for work down in Miami, and no small amount of that was spent with Lewis in his shop. And I kind of smoked through the range. He makes cigars for several different manufacturers, several different companies. He's the manufacturer, but the ones just his standard line that he's that are his. That Corona, I absolutely adore the cigar, and it's probably more in line with what I'm seeing that you like. More of those sedate kind of creamy and actually not unlike these first two that I've had from you. They're not overly woodsy like you were talking about. They're bright, kind of clean flavors. Really good cigars, and very inexpensive, relatively speaking. I mean, you can get those Coronas for about $4, maybe even a little less if you're buying by the box.
Hmm. Wow, that is inexpensive, definitely. I gotta reach for the water again because I'm still toking on this Eminencia. Really drying.
Lewis
What?
has a new cigar that I've been waiting on for a while. I tried. I did a review for him a few months ago, and it is probably my favorite in his line. Although I don't know that it would be one that appeals to you after you just the comments you just made. But it's just he just calls it the ABC, and he's still working on packaging. But I'm anxiously awaiting those things to hit the shelf.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm always up to not to sound condescending, but expand my horizons with things that other people want, or recommend for me. It's I know there's a 1,001 guys out there who absolutely deserve all of us to go out there and invest in their product and give them a shot. It's just, I guess I'm maybe not that average smoker who really wants that new hot cigar because they just want to try something different because it's cool. I like my old standbys, I don't know. But that being said, I like it when people kind of force me to open my eyes and find something else.
Yeah, I always had a few standbys that I smoked constantly for many years, but for the past year and a half, I really branched out and smoked just I couldn't even begin to guess how many different cigars that I'd never tried before,
Hmm.
and all the while keeping all those standbys. I didn't really change what I was smoking as much as I added to.
I think we should probably just call you lucky for that.
Well, it's been fun anyway.
Well, no doubt. Well, my other cigar that I want to talk about this week is kind of an oldie but goodie for me. I found this cigar through an unbanded or a blind review that I did on Dogwatch Cigar Radio a year or two ago. Yeah, it couldn't have been much more than 2 years ago. I think these only came out that summer, a year and a half ago, something like that. This is the Cane Daytona. It's 646, the 6x46 ring gauge. I love these cigars, man. They're so classically Nicaraguan in flavors. Um, and for being someone who isn't a strength guy, I was so anti the cane, when they came out. I just didn't see the point to an 86 or an 82% Ligero cigar, and then the cane F when they figured out a way to make an all Ligero cigar burn. I just thought it was a gimmick, and I got proved wrong. These Daytonas are just a great cigar. Classic old school Nicaraguan flavor with a heavy dose of the new school Nicaraguan as well in there. It's a great blend to me. It's very well rounded in what Nicaraguan tobacco can bring to the table. Not going to make a lot of enemies. Also, not boring to somebody who really seeks out that strong stick. A pretty darn good experience. I need to pick up a box of these.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier when we were talking before the show started that I was not by any means a fan of anything cane, anything Studio Tobacco put out with the word cane on it. It just wasn't for me. It was a little bold for my taste. But that Daytona came out, and man, I had the same response as you. I absolutely loved the cigar. It was, all of that typical kind of hardcore or center mass Nicaraguan flavor without the overpowering strength that really just knocked me down with the other cane.
It's worth seeking out. It's great flavor, absolutely no doubt. And if you're one of those people who likes kind of, you know, uh, getting introduced to what a specific country is maybe known for, or a typical flavor from a specific country, I think this really illustrates Nicaragua well, really well to me at least. So what else you got on there? Looks like there's at least two more.
Yeah, the Roma Craft, which is Skip Martin and his crew. Um, I'm a really big fan of what they're doing. I mentioned actually, I mentioned on a Dog Watch show a few months ago that I was not a huge fan of the Cro-Magnon when it first came out, and I had never really revisited those. But I really liked the Intemperance, and when we were in Chattanooga last summer, just fell head over heels for the Aquitaine. And then Skip, on a subsequent Dog Watch show, had heard that first one and recommended that I go back and try the Cro-Magnon again. I guess they had tinkered with them since that initial release, and turned out I did like them much more. I'm still would pick the Aquitaine as my favorite, but I went back this week and had a few of the Intemperance that I've had in the humidor for a while, and man, I don't know what kind of magic he's working down there, but I like what he's doing, and from all appearances, he's been in Nicaragua for a few weeks, working on some new blends and what looks to be a large group of new shapes and sizes that are coming out, and some of those I think will be additions to the regular lines, and then he has some limited offerings he's going to put out, some new shapes and sizes that will be handed out at events, or retailer specific blends, or you run into Skip somewhere at an event, he'll give you whatever. I just gotta say, I really like what he's doing now.
It's funny. We didn't talk about this. Actually, we didn't talk at all about Roma Craft before the show, but I reached out to a buddy of mine who I know carries Skip's stuff online. I reached out to him maybe last Sunday, Monday, something like that, looking to see if he had a steady supply of the the Roma Craft product in stock, and I also reached out to Skip himself and talked to him a bunch this week, just about what's coming up. When are you gonna have more stuff? I'm watching all of his tweets and his Facebook updates and all the photos, and man, I'm getting hungry every time I look at what he posts on there. He's the master of social media, I think, right now. Whatever he's doing, it's working. It's making me want his product.
Yeah, I think if Skip Martin and Gary Griffith dropped offline, the internet would be gone tomorrow.
You might have a good point there. Well, you got the last one on your list I'm real interested in hearing about here. not to imply that this is the last one I want you to talk about. I just can't wait any longer. I want you to tell me.
Well, the El Triunfador Lancero, it's a Tatuaje product, and I remember Bob talking about those, that line was a big seller, and in fact, I think it was one of the least selling things that Pete Johnson has his hand on. Um, I think they're great cigars in general, that whole line, but this one, I don't know, it's been a couple of years ago now they put out, and they've released a couple of other batches since then. The Old Man in the Sea, which is a small wooden box that has a Lancero and a Culebra in it. And I guess the Triumphador is the Old Man and the Sea is the Culebra. But I smoked that Lancero, and this was from the original release. Like I said, it's been a couple of years ago. But man, I sat in my garage and had that this week, and it was a little bit on the heavy end of medium or slightly full-bodied to me, full strength to me, rather than bodied, but so flavorful. And being a Lancero, the strength wasn't so much that it was overpowering. Just it was a very comfortable, friendly, enjoyable cigar. Didn't sit there and take notes and do all the minutia of trying to do something like a review. I just enjoyed the cigar, and I wish I had a few more of them laying around.
Well, I might be able to make that happen. I've got a box of those that I believe is cracked. So when we exchange cigars next, remind me, and I'll make sure that a few of those find their way in there for you.
Cool. I have not broke open any of the Culebras yet, so I don't know what that's going to be like. I have never unwrapped one of those and smoked them.
Oh, my old man says that a Culebra, anytime I've ever smoked a Culebra around him, he looks like a cigar. He says it looks like a cigar you smoke around the corner. I don't. It's just one of those things that sticks out to you. I love those Triumphadors. I don't know why they weren't met with better fanfare. A lot of people talk about very consistent construction flaws, but I've smoked cigars from two boxes that I know of consistently and not had those construction flaws. So I believe a lot of people have said that halfway through the cigar there's almost like a hole, a void where something with how they were rolled was done improperly, and I've never experienced that, and I've never had anything but great results. So I don't know, maybe I just got lucky with my boxes.
Maybe so. I've had that Lancero was the first I'd had of those, but I've had the El Triumphador in some other sizes, like a Robusto kind of size. Seems like it was about that length, but maybe slightly smaller ring than normal, and never had any kind of construction issue at all.
Well, the construction issues were with the original El Triumphador, Lancero release, which, if my understanding is correct, was more of like a trademark release. He obtained the name, released the cigar in one size, one very simple packaging, to kind of hold that branding, so that way he could put out the Triumphador line later on. But yeah. I know it was not the same blend whatsoever. Those original Lanceros were the ones with the I guess you could call them consistent construction flaws. But I don't know.
None of that, man. This one was just as good as it gets. I think I put on the picture I posted up of that it wasn't the prettiest bell at the ball, but it had a great personality.
Yeah, I actually laughed out loud. I'll take little micro breaks at work. I'm ticked off about something, so I'll take 30 seconds and look on my phone to just see what's going on in the world or check news or something. And I happened to see your Facebook update where you've got those two lines. She ain't the prettiest girl at the bell at the ball, but she's got a heck of a personality. And I laughed at my desk and got a few looks. So thanks for that.
Well, and it was true. It wasn't a beautiful cigar in appearance, but man, it was great in the smoking, and I don't think you can ask for much more than that.
No, I totally agree. That beautiful broadleaf on there just brought a ton to the table in terms of flavor. It's a good cigar. I might have to find one of those this week. Thank you.
All right, I'm talking too much. What else you got a pipe tobacco story on here too.
Well, I've got an interesting story. So, the last few weeks we've talked about, let's get a little bit more into pipe tobacco. It's something that we both enjoy. I think that our listeners might enjoy kind of the growth in discussing it and starting with the basics, and my near zero education on pipes and very limited experience, and your much more refined and high level of expertise. It's a good student and professorial type conversation we can have. So I've been, I don't know, kind of giddy about getting back into my pipe a little bit, and so I found some tobacco that I wanted to try, an old bag from probably 10 years ago that I've had sealed up.
In the bag?
In the bag, yep.
Oh, man, come on now.
It's the best I could do. I'm sorry. I didn't have a better way of keeping it. I don't have any tins any longer, so
get a mason jar.
Really?
You get like a dozen of them for $8 at Walmart.
No, my sister works for Ball, so I mean I can definitely get mason jars. Not that they make mason jars anymore, but that's
absolutely perfect. The only thing you got to remember is get the wide mouth jars, because if you get the normal opening, you can't get your hand down in there.
You come up with jar hands.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it was okay. The tobacco was not overly dried out, and it still had a lot of aroma to it, a ton of aroma to it. But I ran into another problem. I cannot find my pipes. I know I have 2 pipes, and they are nowhere around. I tore my entire smoking room apart, went into my boxes that I've got stored after the move to this house 7 years ago, and it occurred to me that I haven't smoked a pipe in at least 7 years, and I can't find them.
I don't know if I can be your friend anymore.
So I was, I was running out of time. I only had like 2 hours set aside to have a cigar or a pipe or something, and I really wanted to just sit down and enjoy it, and I had spent at least an hour searching for all this stuff. So I'm like, look, I've got 50 minutes left, 45 minutes left. I got to try this stuff at least. And I had just watched Dances with Wolves last weekend on some crazy insomnia raid. And so I'm like, I seem to remember that it was something in the movie where they burned or smoked something, based off of a tray of this kind of smoldering tobacco or whatever it was that they were smoking. I've got an old ashtray that it's got a nice patina to it. I'll put some some pipe tobacco in there and see if I can, kind of clump it up, make me a nice little cache of this pipe tobacco, get it lit, see if I can get it smoldering. Maybe I'll shove a couple burning embers of cedar under there and let her go. And sure enough, it worked. So for 15, 20 minutes, here I am smoking pipe tobacco off of a tray. If somebody walked in, I'm sure it would have looked like I was completely ridiculous, but I'm just enveloping myself in this gorgeous aroma coming off the tobacco and putting my mouth right next to the smoldering the smoldering stuff and just kind of bringing smoke into my mouth and then just letting it go. It was a goofy experience, but it worked and was rewarding, and I smelled fantastic afterward.
Oh man, you got to get a pipe.
I know. I gotta go out and at least get like a 7LE second or something like that. I gotta find something.
Yeah, 7LE, Stanwell both make inexpensive lines that are very well made, and you can get them for a good price.
It's just kind of goofy. I as I'm doing this, the only thing I can think of is, man, this is gonna be funny on the show this week. So, hopefully somebody thought that somebody realized how much of an amateur I really am, and now they don't feel so bad about maybe getting back into pipes, because you can't have a stupider story than that, folks.
Yeah, mason jars though, those are the trick of the trade, and you can't leave it in that bag; it will dry out. The fact that pipe tobacco stayed lit in a tray probably means it was kind of dry to be smoking anyway.
Yeah, I thought that obviously as I was as I was smoking it, it seemed like it was burning more than it was, smoldering as it typically should, and it still had a great aroma, great flavor. It did not come across in a bit of a negative way whatsoever. I knew I was going to pay for it when I talked about it. So,
Well, I recently, this is not in the notes. I hadn't planned on talking about it. It hadn't even crossed my mind. But a couple of weeks ago, I opened a 30-plus-year-old tin of a Dunhill Gold Blend.
wow.
And it was actually kind of a disappointment. Normally, a decent Virginia blend for 30 years is not going to be a problem, but it kind of had gone over the hill. It fell flat for me.
Oh,
But yeah, I put it in a jar. We'll see what happens in a while. I'll try it again.
that's a shame, man. That's really a shame. It's one of those things. I've struggled with it with these Eminencias. I've heard people all my life say, "Look, if it's smoking great, don't hold on to it. Smoke it because you never know what the future is going to bring." And it's the absolute truth. If you're enjoying something right now, smoke it. You know.
Yep, absolutely. I say it many times that don't die and leave your best cigars behind. Just
That's very true. I just it's just such a letdown when you have one of those experiences when something that you've had for a while just doesn't give you the pleasure that you're hoping it's going to. It's kind of a shame. Mm. What possessed you to open up that tin?
uh, just whimsy.
Wow.
I got crap piled up in there in a cabinet for decades, or pot tobacco anyway.
Hmm. Nothing wrong with that. That's pretty cool, actually. Well, I don't know. Anything else on your list? You got so many of them here. I don't even know.
Yeah, it was a good week overall, and nothing else really jumped out. I'm a bigger fan of Eddie Ortega's Serie D than any you or either of the Dog Watch guys were. But I don't know if you kept up, but he's putting out some limited runs. He's calling a Wild Bunch,
Hmm.
and each one of those, there's 12 of them for this year, released monthly, one each month or roughly. Um, and I've been kind of going through the first three of those. I don't even recall two of their names now. The one I like, what I like, the Island Gem, and all of these are named after different people, different characters within the cigar industry that Eddie knows and has met and likes, and just wanted to name a cigar after him. And
A little creepy.
and the one I had this week, I was not a big fan of. I'm a really big fan of Eddie Ortega and his cigars, but the Big Bad John, it was, for one thing, it was a huge cigar, and you see this is what's left of it, which is about half of it. It was a ginormous cigar. But I didn't care for that one so much. The Island Gem I liked a lot. And absolutely nothing like the Serie D, but a very good cigar. But not so much the Big Bad John. It fell a little flat for me. But, I think that's about all that's on my list.
Geez, you've been talking so much. It's about time you're done, man.
Yeah. And I'm watching myself sway back and forth. I'm in a spinning chair here tonight. I can't seem to sit still. So
I'll forgive you for that one. At least I'm not hearing the Zippo click.
I've been chastised about that. I have learned to put it off on the table and leave the lid open, so if I need to relight it, it's already open.
Well, it's about time we move on into the next segment that we regularly cover here. It's kind of one of those, what else you've been enjoying along with cigars lately? And this is really an open-ended wild card of a category here. It could be anything from, what sort of food you've been having, what sort of accompaniment, what people, whatever it is. And for me this week, I had a unique experience. I took a trip to Naperville, Illinois. There's a brewery there called Solemn Oath, and I'm not the biggest hophead in the world, but I certainly do appreciate a good beer. So I went into Solemn Oath, and as all other breweries I've ever been to, you open the door and and you're met with that really, really unique yeasty fermentation aroma, and I just love that, man. It's just such an accompaniment for a cigar. Although I couldn't smoke at the brewery, obviously, Illinois being a smoke-free state, it's just one of those things that I appreciate. That room aroma of a consumable, really, really just a beautiful accompaniment to the experience. And so I had a flight of what they were currently brewing, and I found a Belgian ale or Belgian style that they call Butterfly Flash Mob. And man, oh man, was this cigar and is this cigar a terrific accompaniment to a cigar. Oh, gosh.
This cigar is a terrific accompaniment to this cigar.
This beer, excuse me, thank you for that, was a terrific accompaniment to a cigar. I've since enjoyed it a bit, and thought that it was just, it's a unique beer in that it's not characteristically hoppy or sweet or malty. It kind of has a lot of those combinations that work with it, but not in a schizophrenic or misdirected sort of way. It has very clear flavors and times that they're perceived. Right on that initial flavor, when it hits your palate, you're greeted with a very sweet, yeasty, that Belgian yeast, that characteristic Belgian yeast flavor. That's sweet. Really, really unique. There's a little bit of maltiness in there, and then it transitions into a bit of a sharp, hoppy flavor on the finish. And it worked really, really well to balance out the heaviness or heavy body from a cigar. Really liked that. I thought that it was a unique thing that I'd recommend to people, definitely. It worked well with that J Fuego, that Reserva Familia. That's not an extremely heavy cigar. It's a cigar that has got a lot of character to it and had a good body, even though it was a little bit of a milder cigar. It worked really well with this beer, no doubt.
Cool.
So thought that was worth bringing up.
I actually know a guy in Naperville.
Really?
Cigar guy. He goes by Coop in a handful of forums around. He's not Cigar Coop. He's a different Coop. Yeah. And I guess that's not too far from you.
Yeah, not too terribly far. Nope, not at all. Well, he doesn't happen to make his own boutique cigars, does he?
No, he's not in the industry. He's just a dedicated enthusiast.
A couple weeks back, week and a half ago, I found a cigar at a shop that actually comes from a guy who lives in Naperville, and I had never heard of him or the cigar. I think it's called the Nuck or the Nuke or something like that. NUC or LUC. I don't know. I bought a couple of the cigars. I was thinking of trying them out here in the next couple weeks, but Naperville's a pretty big town, 150,000 people. So
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
I'll find it. Look, the band was, it was classic cigar band, bright red with gold lettering and some striping on it. I mean, it really was reminiscent of a lot of cigar bands that are out there. So it didn't stick out individually or with individuality, but the gentleman who owns the cigar is definitely from the Chicago suburb. So.
Well, speaking of bands, and this is not in the notes, and I forgot to mention it earlier. I don't know if you noticed this or saw any news when we got it from Skip when you were talking to him this week. He's putting bands on his cigars now.
Yeah, I did notice that.
I saw a couple months ago when he was in Florida that one of his, I guess it came through as a tweet or something, he had checked in at Action Label. And so I kind of figured he was about to do that. And he's been putting pictures up this week. He's putting bands on there. And I happen to have a local retailer that sells his cigars. And I was talking to him about them because I really like them. And that's where I bought what I was smoking this week. And that was his only criticism. He's like, I have trouble convincing people to just go ahead and try this cigar because it has no band on it. And, it's not, despite the fact that there's not a lot to packaging, you got to sell that first cigar and convince somebody to buy it. It's hard to do without a band on it.
Boy, that's interesting. It's just weird to me to hear a retailer say something like that. It's so second nature for me to see unbanded cigars. I mean, for years and years and years, up until I think 2003, I believe 2003, every cigar in a cabinet that came out of Cuba was unbanded. Yeah, I mean, there could be a version of the cigar that was just in a normal dress box and it was banded, but if there was a cab version, it was unbanded. Um, so I mean, that's to me, it's a beautiful way of presenting a cigar. It's all about that minimalistic approach. Let the cigar speak for itself, and I've always kind of loved it. You know, there's nothing more beautiful to me than a gorgeous cigar wrapper, but um, I guess from a retailer's perspective, you don't have anything that someone can hold on to afterwards saying, yeah, this cigar was awesome. I want this cigar again. Can you sell me this? So I could see.
That was exactly what he said. He said when people buy a cigar and they come back to him and say, I don't know much about it, but here's the band, or the band looked like this, and somebody would tell him what they had tried, and he just made that remark kind of offhand, and you know, lo and behold, he's get putting bands on a cigar.
Well, if nothing else, it's an expense. You know, you need to buy 10,000 bands, 50,000 bands at a time, and you need to pay someone to put them on your cigars, and it's an added step that slows it down. I mean, I can understand why a manufacturer might not think that it's incredibly important, but, you know, you're in the business for a little while, and people start telling you that, hey, I can't sell this cigar. You got to put a band on it, so that way I can know that people will come back. You start listening.
Yeah, and it's more of a cost when you have some growth. And
yeah,
I certainly don't know the behind-the-scenes numbers for Skip, but from all appearances, he has grown a lot in the past 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So when you're making, you know, more and more and more cigars and moving them, making a change to your process like that, you know, adding a step and presumably adding a person into the process, that's a big expenditure.
Mm-hmm. Just think from a boutique manufacturer's perspective, space is often an issue. You know, I mean, I've been in factories that are, you know, the size of 2 bedrooms or something, and there's 12 people working in there, 14 people. You know, I mean, now add another person and another staging point. It's interesting. I can remember going in the Elogio factory, or Elogio, as I've certainly referred to it for many years. And their factory was, you know, maybe a 15 by 25 foot room with 24 people in it, for Pete's sake. You know, I mean, everything was just piled to the ceiling and people stacked on top of each other. It was kind of interesting to see, you know, that they're able to function with such efficiency in such a cramped space. But you know, it's just one of those little things. Logistics, man, it makes the world go round.
Well, not to get too far off on a rat hole and spend, you know, the whole show talking about Skip, but he is a great guy. But he has, I think, really done things right with setting up his company, in that he, rather than having somebody else make a cigar for him and being at the mercy of tobacco supplies and who has this leaf at this time and where and how much, he bought a large inventory of tobacco a year and a half, 2 years ago, and created his blends. And so he has his own stock he's rolling out of. They bought a piece of property. They built a small factory, and they have brought much more of their operation under their own control, rather than being at the mercy of somebody else who may not prioritize them as a company.
Yeah, I've got some friends, and well, I mean, I've done it. I've got some friends who are still doing it, who are having cigars made by large manufacturers. And I know Plasencia will make cigars for people. They have for years and years and years. Not putting 2 and 2 together and implying that this is something that Plasencia does, but you know, I know that people have not only said, yeah, I have to wait longer, or I'm not getting the care that I want, but I've heard horror stories of tobacco disappearing. You know, you go out and you select a blend, and all of a sudden your cigar is a different cigar because that tobacco you selected worked really well for this big company for someone else who's paying more.
Absolutely.
You know, that's terrible.
If you are buying your leaf from a large supplier and you're the little guy and they need to give that leaf to the big guy, who do you think, which account are they going to preserve?
Well, yeah, no doubt. It's a tough situation. I commend Kip for doing that. I wasn't even aware that was the background for him.
Skip.
What did I say?
Yep.
Man, I'm getting tired apparently. Cigar and beer and now Kip and Skip. Ay, ay, ay.
Habano.
Well, why don't we get into this Eminencia here? I'm approaching the point where I want to put this bad boy down. We've been going on it for solidly an hour and a half.
Yeah, I just did the same and actually have relit the cigar I had a little earlier, which is an odd thing for me. I don't commonly relight cigars after a few minutes. But yeah, I got down to, I don't know, maybe an inch or a little less left of the Eminencia. And if I had to pick between the two that I have had so far from what I got from you, I would probably have taken the Montecristo, although I really like this cigar. And it, again, never ever got any harshness. You know, I'm down to where it was almost getting too hot to hold on my fingers. And it never threw up the flag and said, okay, this is it, we're done. Never got any of that harshness. Did get a little bit of some woodsiness, and actually a very specific wood. I have a background in furniture, so I've spent a lot of time in furniture manufacturing operations, and very specifically reminded me of the smell of walnut, and not the nut, not what you eat, the wood itself when it's being planed or tenoned or something. I spent several years in a plant that made hardwood flooring, and some of that was from walnut. And I just remember when I was smoking that first one of these, thinking that it so clearly reminded me of when we were cutting walnut flooring. That smell.
Wow.
When walnut is shaved and heated up a little bit.
All right, so completely off-topic comment.
Uh-huh.
I'm, you know that I design and build houses. I think I've talked to you about that before. I'm working with a client right now to try to make a wood flooring selection, and I'm trying to push her on hickory. Have you ever worked with hickory floors, hickory flooring?
Nope. The only experience with hickory I have is about 10 feet from me, my smoker, which is going to be fired up at 3:30 in the morning.
Well, I guess that's good experience with hickory. That makes for a nice finished product.
We did a lot of the softer woods, pine and poplar, which is kind of in between. And then the hardwoods we dealt with flooring and cabinets were predominantly oak, walnut, ash, maple.
Yeah, the oak and maple are the two biggies that I typically deal with. But this hickory floor's got a lot of good characteristics, and it's just a matter of convincing her to not go with the oak product from Menards that she wants to supply herself. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah,
well, tell her it's pecan. It's a more consumer-friendly name. She'll buy that.
There you go. Well, for me, as the Eminencia is coming to an end, I've got a little bit more than you. I'm at about an inch and a half or so. You can check that out on the video. Easy, an inch and a half left. I have relit a couple times just because I've been yapping too much, and I don't think it helped this cigar. All in all, I'd say that this is the worst experience I've had with an Eminencia. I would say that it's okay. You know, this wasn't bad. It did not get harsh. As you said, it's just not filled with the complexity and the sweetness and that really wonderful nuttiness that is just such a hallmark of the RA blend. We've got a couple more Ramoniones cigars coming for me over the next year or so, or 6 months, year, whatever it may be, the cigars that we've planned out. Both a smaller version than this, a Petite Corona, and then a much larger version, the Double Corona. And I hope that those two cigars will really display that sweet nuttiness and wonderful balance of both hard and soft, savory and sweet flavors that this blend brings to the table. To me, I definitely get a woodiness out of this now, but it's not specific, as you say, and it's certainly not prominent. I would probably call a little bit more akin to a cedar something that's more of a wood aroma that is just reminiscent rather than so specific to an experience. I'm definitely getting a little bit more pepper on my soft palate. It's definitely picking up in the peppery flavor, and that kind of sweet and sour has transitioned away from the sour to me. I don't get as much tannic um, flavors or tea flavors. I'm getting a little bit more of a um, I don't know. It's hard to describe. Maybe a little bit more of a sharp citrusy flavor to this, but that's about it. I'm really not pleased with the stage that the cigar is at right now, and it's kind of a shame that you've smoked this one at this point in its evolution. I think that there's a lot more that it has to give. So, but such is life. You smoke a cigar one day at a time, one puff at a time. So, you got to take what it gives you.
You're getting philosophical there.
If you smoke a cigar one day at a time, that'd be an awful long cigar.
Yeah.
Well, as we kind of start with the closing of the show here, I want to, I guess, call on you or put the onus on you to pony up, my good man, and talk a little bit about this contest you've had running over the last month plus.
Yeah, those of you that have tuned in or paid attention to our earlier shows know we were giving away some cigars from the first show where we featured the sun-grown version of the 858 from Fuente. And I got to stop rocking. My wife just sent me a text to stop rocking in this chair. We're giving away a 5-pack, which is one of each of the different offerings of the 858, each of the different wrappers. The filler and binder are the same on all of them. Which would be the Natural and the Maduro, which are the normal lines, the Candela, which is also a normal line, but you don't see them as often just because there's not a high demand for them, so they don't hang around on the shelves too much. And the Sun-Grown, which is a cigar we featured that first week. And the final one, which is just a fantastic mild cigar, if you're into mild cigars, is the Rosado version of that, and I love it. And to be honest, I hate letting another one go, but we're going to give one away because I'm just that kind of guy. And also, I was going to throw in one of my Cigar Me mugs, which the supply is dwindling, and I owe somebody else one more of those. I haven't shipped yet. And the Screw Pop tool, which was a little combination cigar cutter, bottle opener, goes on your keychain. Actually turned out to be pretty handy and made its way onto my keychain. And that I mentioned a few weeks ago, that's a rare thing because I don't like a lot of clutter in my pocket. And I even said if I could key my house and car alike, I would only have one key to carry. So I printed out all the folks that sent me an email this month, printed their names out, cut them into little strips, and remembered why I said I would never give away something that way again after I cut out all those little strips and folded them up and put them in a cigar box. It turns out we had 42 folks this month send in an email of some sort or another. And I had my daughter pull out the name. And I'm looking to see if I can share the screen here. Can everybody see that name on there? It's Dan Crouch.
Hey.
DC, long-time Dog Watch listener and a good guy. I got the chance to meet him last summer at the Dog Watch Herf. And DC, you want it? Email me your address you want it sent to, and I will get that on the way to you.
That's it's just such a coincidence because if you've been listening to the show the last 4 episodes prior to this one, I mean, we've probably talked about Dan Crouch 2 or 3 times at least. And so it's, Kip told me before tonight's episode that sure shooting Dan won. And, I had said, well, gee, you think we should come up with some fake name on there so it doesn't sound like the first thing that we do involving the public we've got rigged that a friend of ours is going to win it. And God's honest truth, I trust Kip 100% on this one. I think it was just simply the luck of the draw. So Dan, congratulations.
The very reason I took that picture of her drawing that name, because she I'm going to bother DC a little bit. She pulled the name out of the box and opened it up, and she said, Dan Crotch. I, I said, okay, I don't think it's Crotch, it's Crouch. And so we took that picture just as some evidence that it was indeed drawn out. It because my wife said they're going to think that's rigged because you know DC.
Uh, well, that's pretty funny. I know Dan will appreciate those cigars an awful lot. And at least hey, if you're gonna send one of those fabled rosados to somebody, it's nice that it's going to someone you know is gonna smoke it, enjoy it, and probably even tell you a lot about that experience. Maybe we can get Dan to write something up or something and send it on over to us to talk about. So.
And you got some giveaway duty yourself coming up. You want to give the details for that?
Yeah, absolutely. In honor of our next live show that we're doing, which is in obviously the second Friday of every month, so the second Friday of April. April 8th. Thank you.
No, I don't recall the date. Let's see. April the 12th, I guess, will be the next live show.
April the 12th, okay. Just as I said, April the 12th. In honor of our next live show, the cigar that we're smoking on that day, which is a cigar recommended by Kip, one of his favorites, which is the Tatuaje Mexican Experiment. I'm going to have a little bit of a Tatuaje-themed giveaway here. I'm going to ask the same thing of the listeners. Email Kip or I some comment about the show, good, bad, doesn't matter, or a question, some sort of interaction. Just let us know you're listening. Let us know what your thoughts are, one way or another about anything, and you'll be entered into the drawing. I will take on the horrendous act of having to pick out all the names, the thing that Kip hates to do. But this one's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to tell you specifically what you're going to get. It's just going to be some of the Tatuaje swag that's been given away over the years. Kip has so graciously offered to include in the package one of the Tatuaje Mexican Experiment cigars for you to smoke along with us during that live show. And I'll throw in some other goodies in there as well myself. So cigars, I mean. So it'll be a good package. You'll want to participate. Send us a note, drop a line, and we'll enter you in and get you ready. So the catch on this is I'm only going to accept emails up until next week's show. So just 1 week of time to enter this in. So that's going to give me the opportunity to pull a winner. I think we'll even announce it next week. Why not? We can hopefully announce it next week, and then what we can do is Kip will send me these cigars. I will get your package of all the swag together. I'll send it out to you. You can have a week or two in the humidor with those cigars before our live show, and hopefully it'll then be in real good condition to smoke with us. So you only have 1 week. So the deadline is going to be next Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern to get me an email or Kip an email about the show. So let us know that. Anything you want, send it on over, and you'll be entered into this drawing. So it'll be a good one to win.
Yeah, and just a side note about those Mexican experiments. Those were a limited run they did this past year with a San Andres wrapper. Did a couple of regional releases of roughly only about 300 bundles of these things went out, bundles of 15. Some into Florida and some in New England, in a couple of different states up there. And it is one of my top 2 favorite Tatuajes, and they are definitely hard to come by now. I'd be surprised if you saw them on the shelf still today because there were so few of them, and they went quickly. But it's just a fantastic smoke.
Well, I'm looking forward to it as well. I have not smoked that cigar myself, so a month from now, when we have that next live show, it'll be a first for me as well. So I'll do my my epilogue review that's going to go up on Cigar Me, thecigarme.com, of that cigar, and hopefully I know Kip took some notes about tonight's Eminencia. Hopefully his review of the Eminencia will also make it up onto the Cigar Me.
Yeah, I'll get that up this weekend.
Terrific. So check that out. Maybe read along Kip's review to listen when you're listening to the produced version of this week's show, and I think that you'll enjoy both those.
All right.
Well, anything more to add about the Eminencia? I know you finished it off, and no's okay. You don't have to add anything, but
not a whole lot. Toward that end, I said it developed that kind of walnut flavor to it, and that was tempered with some of that sweeter kind of spice that we've talked about countless times. That I don't know what I would call it. It was some you call it baking spice. Me and Dale call it tropical spice. Just that allspice-ish, and I don't mean I don't mean it tastes identical to allspice, but that's the thing that it puts in my mind. It's that family of flavors, or that palette of flavors that I really enjoy.
Yeah, me too. I love that. It's probably my favorite flavor to get out of a cigar, bar none. So I'm glad you're able to get a little bit of enjoyment out of this cigar, Kip. It wasn't as great of an experience as I thought it would be, but nice to know that you did still enjoy it. So,
yeah, and moving right along as we wrap up here, I want to mention again, if you have a suggestion for an unbanded cigar, for the time being, we're doing one of those a month. If we start to get a backlog, we'll certainly kind of step that up. But you can submit your recommendations or suggestions to info@thecigarme.com. And again, that doesn't go to either Craig or myself. That's a forwarding address. It goes to my wife, and she'll source the cigars for us. Or you can just send me an email if you want to send something in that maybe is not available locally for me or Craig. You just want to send the cigars, you can hit me with an email, and I'll give you an address to send them to. And next week, our cigar of the week is another one of my submissions. It's the Oliva Serie V Maduro, which is an annual release. They put those out somewhere around late November, early December every year.
Yeah.
It's a very good cigar for me. I enjoy it, and I always stash several of those away every year. And I'm down now. I think all I have left is 2011 and 12 at this point. And these that we're going to be smoking are the most recent ones from just a couple of months ago. And I believe they appear to be identical to the 2011. They're the same size, same shape. They appear the same. They taste very much the same to what I remember. I haven't sat down and smoked one or two of them side by side, but just a great smoke. And what else we got to wrap up here?
Well, I wanted to just kind of bookend that discussion of the unbanded suggestions to kind of say that, folks, if I can offer a bit of a suggestion, don't be afraid to maybe make that submission into this week's contest. That email to me or Kip be about the unbanded segment. Remember, we've kind of teased over the last few weeks a future goal that I have for that unbanded, to maybe make it not so much unbanded in the sense that we don't know what the cigar is, but unbanded in the sense that we have the same cigar and we're doing a vertical review of it. We know what the cigar is, but we have multiple samples from different years or different releases, just like what Kip's talking about with this Oliva Serie V. There's a 2012 version, a 2011, and I could presume, based on what you implied, there's even previous versions to that as well. It would be very unique for an unbanded to be, one of the unbanded episodes to be where we can talk about the vertical reviews of a number of different releases of the same cigar. So some unique things that I've kind of imagined. Maybe we could do a Tatuaje Monster release come the second half of the year, where we smoke a number of the monsters at once. Or we could do the Oliva Serie V, perhaps, with a number of different years. Or perhaps we look at a Cuban cigar which has box codes, and you can very specifically pinpoint either a certain factory or a certain month or a year of release of the same cigar. I'd love for a vertical release, excuse me, a vertical review to be able to be achieved to where maybe we could say, you know, I think this is the 2010 release, or I think this is a 6-year-old Partagas Serie D number 4, and I think this one's the 2-year-old Partagas Serie D number 4. It's going to require some help from the audience, and I think that we might even be able to get enough samples to have an audience member to participate with us. I think it'd be kind of a fun thing if we could all make that nice participation thing. But don't be afraid to send email suggestions or thoughts about what we might be able to do. You'll get your entrance into the contest, so it might be a cool way to kind of combine the two. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and we'll chat a little bit once we go offline here, but I may have some direction on sourcing all of the Serie V Maduro offerings.
Perfect. That might be a really, really cool way of doing that, definitely.
And I think they go back to 2008, so that will be 5 years worth.
That would be really, really neat. I would be very interested in talking about that.
So we once again we thank the Cigar Federation guys for letting us hang out on their site and push this video out there and providing a chat room for us. And of course, we always recommend you hang out there, pump up that forum a little bit. I noticed there hadn't been a lot of activity recently in the forum. They do have a forum going, and you feel free to put up some questions, comments, whatever you got going on with cigars, what you're smoking this week or this day or whatever. They got a lot of cool functionality there on the site that's there and free for the use.
I know, Kip and I both checked that site, and it's a neat place to interact with us perhaps a little bit, and it is a great place to be around like-minded individuals who are as passionate about this hobby and lifestyle as you are. So give it a whirl. It's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, and as always, if you want to get in touch with us, you can get Craig at his email is craig@thecigarme.com, and mine is kip@thecigarme.com, of course. And plenty of information there if you want to get us some other way, Facebook, Twitter, Cigar Federation, however you like. Plenty of ways to get in touch with us.
Well, ladies and gents, come to that time of the evening again where we need to sign off, and I need to tell you how much I appreciate a lot of the blessings in my life, and I need to say that, Alice, I really appreciate all you've done for me. So, ladies and gentlemen, have yourself a great evening, and we really, really do appreciate you participating with us, smoking along, enjoying our evening herf that we got going on here. So, folks, have yourself a great one, great night, and go Blackhawks.
Good night, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in.